This is our time. The main news at this hour. On Yulia Gorovaya in the studio. Hello. We will not give our land to the occupiers. Vladimir Zelenskyy said this during the State Flag Day celebration in Kiev. The president of Ukraine also emphasized that the security of democratic countries is only possible together with a strong Ukraine.
It is this flag that represents a sense of salvation for the people we bring back from Russian captivity. When they see the Ukrainian colors, they know the evil has passed. And this flag is the goal and dream for many of our people in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. They cherish it because they know we will not give our land to the occupier.
The flag that Russia fears. That's how the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, General Alexander Syrskyi, described the Ukrainian national symbol. According to him, the blue and yellow banner is the flag of a people fighting for their independence and holding back the Russian horde that seeks to kill and destroy freedom.
Our national flag will forever fly over Kiev. And the time will come, I believe, when Ukrainian soldiers will raise it in Donetsk, Luhansk, Simferopol and Sevastopol, Mariupol, Berdyansk, and in many other Ukrainian cities and villages that will be returned. Alexander Syrskyi, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Crimea is Ukraine. The resistance continues. The Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine released a video for Ukraine's State Flag Day. The footage shows activists on the temporarily occupied peninsula creating murals and patriotic drawings as part of the Wall Paintings of Resistance project by the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and the Center for National Resistance. Works dedicated to the resistance and shattering the myths of the so-called Russian world are appearing on the walls of Crimea. On the southern coast, activists are leaving bright patriotic images, slogans like Crimea is Ukraine, and symbols of the resistance movement of the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. These visual messages demonstrate the strength and courage of people who, despite terror and persecution, show that Ukraine lives in the heart of Crimea. The resistance movement continues to operate and fight for the deoccupation of Crimea. 3 more children and a teenager have been returned from Russia to Ukraine. They were previously illegally taken from the Oleshki orphanage, first to temporarily occupied territory, and then to Russia. This was reported by the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak. According to him, the children were separated from their families for a long time and could not return because of the dangers of occupation. Now they are home safe on the territory of free Ukraine. Putin is not ready for substantive negotiations or meetings. This was stated by the first deputy head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Serhiy Kyslytsya. He noted that the meeting at the White House between Presidents Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Donald Trump, as well as European leaders, became a key event of recent months. According to him, the U.S. administration is increasingly understanding the Kremlin's manipulations.
Russia must fulfill its part of the agreement, namely to work in a spirit of cooperation with the United States and Ukraine's European partners, who are coordinating security guarantees among themselves. Security guarantees are not intended for any future malicious actions by the aggressor. Serhiy Kyslytsya, First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, in an interview with NBC News.
China will not be a security guarantor, stated President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Beijing did not help Ukraine either when Russia occupied Crimea or when it launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Kiev will only accept security guarantees from those countries that are ready to help, the head of state emphasized. Our correspondents looked into why Moscow is so insistent on proposing China as a guarantor.
Russia sees China as one of the possible security guarantors for Ukraine, said Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. He also said that Moscow supposedly should have a say in Kiev's security matters. In other words, simply put, a veto right. Later, Lavrov added that Russia does not object if the permanent members of the UN Security Council become Ukraine's security guarantors, that is, the US, the UK, France, and, once again, Russia and China. Let's recall that at UN Security Council meetings, Moscow, like Beijing, readily uses its veto power to block any initiatives that could limit its aggressive actions in Ukraine or other regions of the world.
Soviet diplomacy and today's Russian diplomacy are on the same level. And they have a very clear tactic to demand the impossible and hold their ground to the end. And when you demand the impossible and even go beyond your own capabilities, in other words, when you go all in at some point, they hope that someone will waver and, if not give in to all their demands, then at least to some of them. That's pretty much what's happening right now.
Beijing shows a willingness to participate in political processes and peace negotiations, but avoids taking responsibility. According to experts, this is due to the cautious nature of China's foreign policy, whose main goal is to avoid getting involved in conflicts where the country's interests could be harmed. In Russia's war against Ukraine, Beijing has clearly taken Moscow's side. Deliveries of electronics and equipment, as well as dual-use goods for the Russian military industry, all of this helps the aggressor country continue its military actions. In addition, China is the second largest importer of Russian oil, and its export is the main source of funding for the Kremlin's war machine. The PRC authorities refer to Russia's war against Ukraine as the Ukrainian crisis and always emphasize their supposedly neutral stance.
China supports all efforts that contribute to a peaceful resolution of the issue. We are pleased to see that Russia and the United States have established contact to improve relations and promote a political settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. We hope that all interested parties will be able to participate in the peace negotiation process in a timely manner and reach a fair, lasting, and binding peace agreement acceptable to all sides as soon as possible. Mel Ning, spokesperson for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as cited by Barron's.
Ukraine does not consider China as a possible security guarantor after the end of the war, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated. Beijing did not help stop this bloodshed from the very beginning. On the contrary, it opened the drone market to Russia, thereby supporting the aggressor. The head of state also reminded that China did not take any action when Russia occupied Crimea and launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
That is precisely why we do not need guarantees that are not helping Ukraine now and did not help us at the moment when we truly needed them after February 24th. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, president of Ukraine, at a meeting with journalists.
Kiev's partners are actively working on security commitments for Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy confirmed. The head of state is confident that they should be similar to NATO's Article 5 on collective defense. Europe and the United States intend to provide Kiev with such guarantees so that Putin will never again attempt to attack Ukraine, emphasized the NATO Secretary General at a joint press conference with the President of Ukraine. Victoria Chistiakina for Freedom TV Channel.